When we went and asked our customers and our sales team, what are some hot topics that you want us to make sure we get into the mix here, automation was really number one. And so this presentation is really about automating the insights that we deliver. Cost, should cost here. I know someone said they don't like that term, but I think it works well. And DFM, design for manufacturability, right, as the ultimate outcome enabler. I want to start with a question. What causes multi-billion-dollar companies, oh, our clicker's not quite working here. Let me see if I can advance. There we go. What causes multi-billion-dollar companies to launch new products late and over cost target? When you think about that, what it comes down to is your products, and we've heard from Dana an example of 300 parts in a bill of material. I've heard from others thousands of parts. We've got supply chain complexities. We've got tariffs coming up. And it's tough to even just get the talent, right, on your teams, right? So with all of that compounding together, to me it's not surprising that this is a common challenge when we've gone and talked to many of you out there and many of our customers and prospective clients as well. And the reality is, when you look at a typical product development cycle, this is a very simplified version, but we start in new product development engineering. And whether you're in new product development early on or in procurement, what we've found and heard from many of you is that a lack of having the right insights at the right moment, at the right time, can really impact whether you hit your target on time and from a cost perspective. How many in the audience, I know we did a little poll, but how many here do we have that consider yourselves more in a new, R&D or product engineering, design engineering role? Maybe by show of hands. Okay, so maybe about half of us. As we go on in procurement, oftentimes I think about procurement in its late stage negotiating on existing products, but there's NPI procurement teams as well that are working hand in hand with engineering. Right, so you look at this, you could kind of span the whole spectrum here. How many do we have in procurement and sourcing kind of type role here? Okay, so maybe another 10 or so that raise hands there. But on the other side, after we launch a product and we go into more of a sustaining mode, we actually have to go and make it. Right, so we get into manufacturing operations, and we hear this as well. Lack of having the right insights and resources to reduce actual costs. So whether that's in manufacturing, maybe looking for cycle time information, or more in a sustaining engineering or value cost engineering role, really important to have access to the right information there as well. This presentation is about automation and how automation of critical insights throughout the cycle here can really be a major driver to help you achieve your outcomes. I'm going to go into what I mean by that. An automated approach helps you focus on what matters most. The way I distill it down, we largely have two approaches at aPriori. On the left-hand side here is an approach, what I kind of call a traditional way of using aPriori, where each part is analyzed individually, right? So we've got a human, a person here, looking at a model, whether that's running through our CAD plugin or uploading a model into aPriori directly. It could be several parts, several models together. But still, at that moment, you're having to manually upload that part. There's a human touch there, more than in an automated way, which I'm going to go over in a moment on the right. Still leveraging aPriori's simulation engine and saving time from manual methods, the way that things were done traditionally, but still have to go and manually analyze each part and execute that motion. Versus if we look at on the right, an automated analysis of all the parts, an automated approach. Now we're looking at many parts and automating that in our workflow. So as an example, maybe as a designer, I'm running through my model, I'm going through my update in CAD, I get that part checked in, that version through PLM. aPriori now behind the scenes is pulling that CAD model and metadata from PLM, automatically running that analysis and doing a couple things there. On the bottom left-hand side, that user is now getting an auto-generated report telling them specifically, what do I need to go and fix for this part for DFM, or for that part for costs, or maybe it's for both. So instead of manually having to go and touch every single part, they're getting that directly there, not having to go and touch every single one. Additionally, now we can start to roll up cost carbon, manufacturability, could be cycle time, to know exactly what needs to be fixed. So on the right-hand side there, by integrating with PLM, could be a file-based system, aPriori can work behind the scenes to remove that, one of those human touch points to now make that a whole lot easier to get the information to those users to make a difference in some sort of outcome. Could be cost savings, could be time, you name it. I want to go in and share a couple examples here of who has actually gone and done this. And we've got two examples here where automation, of companies investing more in aPriori's automation to enable outcomes. So the first example here I want to share is Rivian. And really example here of improving product profitability. We've got three folks from Rivian here, Rizwan and team. I don't know if you want to raise your hands or say hi. Thank you for coming. Rivian's doing some amazing work of improving product profitability to the tune on their R1 model of 20 to 25% cost reduction of their bill of material. Rizwan told me this, largely attributed to aPriori. Pretty amazing results there that they've been able to achieve. They're doubling down on automation and to really go even faster to achieve their outcomes. The second example I want to give is CNH. CNH, multi-billion-dollar industrial and agricultural equipment manufacturer. Really, what they've been using us for is able to launch on time and under cost target. And to date, they just updated this number, been able to analyze and get to $10.2 million in cost avoidance identified just this year. They've been able to do this through automation and have continued to invest in aPriori's automation capabilities to go even faster and achieve more outcomes. Let's go ahead and actually hear, we have a video teed up here where CNH's chief engineer is talking about what aPriori's automated costing is doing for them.
Starting this year, we have seen almost about 9 million now cost opportunities identified.
Automated costing is already available. It's a form that is filled out in Team Center, and then every time a baseline is created or a step release is performed, a new cost analysis is automatically run on the parts. With the automated costing, we're automating the costing process as we're designing parts that we don't have time to touch every single one manually and have a live cost roll up of our system keys so that we know that, okay, this system key is below target, this system key over here is above target, but overall, from a product standpoint, we're right where we need to be.
Typically put all my sheet metal parts through the automated costing system, and if something comes back with a medium or a high for a manufacturability risk, then I can go look at it a little closer.
And that also helps make informed decisions when you have a couple of 2 or 3 different design concepts that from a customer requirements point of view, both of them are equal. So which one is the better choice? Which one is the better cost?
So here we heard from Ryan here, chief engineer at CNH. Doesn't have to touch his team himself, don't have to touch every single part manually that comes through to their desk. Think about what that could do in terms of time savings, the outcomes that you drive. Now you're focusing instead of on every single part, now I know specifically which ones to go that are red that I need to go and fix and address. The rest of the presentation here, the way I'm setting it up is really there's 4 key areas to automation. What we really talked about setting up the scene here is really the data generation piece. I strongly believe and call that the upstream automation aspect. We need to have the data itself to reap the benefits of three core areas that I call downstream automation. But on number 1, the upstream automation, it's critical to be able to find ways to increase coverage of our spend. It was great to hear from Jill earlier, gave us some great numbers in terms of spend coverage. That's the sort of information I think that's critical to be able to keep track of. From a procurement perspective, what % are we addressing and have we actually analyzed through aPriori? Then from an engineering side, it's increasing coverage of bill of material, of new product development, but we're going to get into that as well. But it all starts with having the data itself to leverage the benefits on the process side. Data in and of itself is not valuable. We need to connect it to a business process to reap the benefits and take action. So we're going to get into that specifically. We've got a large representation here from engineering and procurement. We heard actually from Scott earlier talking about some of the friction points of not sharing certain information from one group with another in silos. I'm going to talk about workspace a little bit. It's one of our solutions to actually bridge the gap between those two functions. But again, we have to have the data available to be able to leverage that. So we'll dive into that a bit more, and then we'll get in the measurement piece. Fielder touched on that earlier. We're coming out with a design value dashboard to measure cost avoidance, but there's also some critical dashboards and information from a procurement perspective that I've kind of seen as best in class, and we're going to show that as well. And then the learning and application. Think about how much data is being analyzed and generated through aPriori. Tremendous amount of learning and applied learning can be used and benefit from by using AI. Fielder talked about sourcing copilot, sourcing coach, but there's a whole other wealth of information and opportunities to go and leverage AI to learn from. So we're going to talk about that as well. So let's start with the data and insights. How does it work? We talked about that a little bit, and I would say to really understand how it works, we've got our solutions engineers out in the lobby. If you want to learn more about how it works, kind of go quite a bit level deeper than what I'm going to show here, that's a great opportunity to go and see it. But from a design engineering perspective, as a designer checks a part into PLM, aPriori is automatically monitoring PLM and pulling that model and metadata from PLM to go and run that scenario, that part through our engine. This is without the user's interaction. Don't have to manually pull apart, upload it in, or click run in aPriori, the plugin from whatever your preferred CAD system is. Now we're removing that human touch point, and now without that user interaction, we're getting that report directly to our email to tell me exactly what I need to go and focus on. That could be DFM, could be costs, could be cycle time. That's emailed directly to that designer when that exception's identified. The value there, like you're getting all of that, you're saving time, but additionally, all of those parts that are run through those scenarios in the background can be leveraged for your own intelligence purposes, maybe using AI, but there's a whole lot of benefit that can come with that. Now let's go through an example. Let's pretend we are an e-scooter manufacturer, and we've got 15 parts out of this assembly. Could be more, but for this sake here, we've got 15 parts. How do we automate the manual cost and DFM checks that we're doing today to make sure that we're running 100% checks of our bill of material? And maybe today's process, maybe you are using aPriori in this more traditional way, maybe you have another solution that you're using. You've got people involved and probably in a more manual way than you'd like. We've heard a lot about using spreadsheets here and the challenges with that. What we've gone and heard is that largely out of the checks that you want to make due to time constraints, competition pressure, supply chain challenges, you don't have as much time as you need. You probably don't have as much resources as you need. So let's say we're able to get to 3 out of 15 checks. Compare and contrast that with an automated approach. We're able to get to 15 out of 15. We're running that analysis because it's happening in the background. We're removing a couple of those manual checks that need to happen, but we're still getting that analysis through. And now I'm getting that information. I know exactly what I need to work on to the point where I can focus on the most impactful parts that have opportunity to improve. So now I'm able to get to 15 out of 15 checks, and I know that 5 parts out of those 15 make up 80% of cost. Now I know as a designer, maybe I'm owning this product launch as chief engineer, or maybe I own several of these parts, but I now know that second part there makes up 20%, let's say, of my estimated should cost, and I've got a red for DFM here and a red for cost. I know that that's the one that I want to go in to focus on more, to find out what I need to do to run more analyses, run more scenarios, so when I need to, I still have the opportunity to go into our application, to run it through AP Design, to run more scenarios, to see how I can go and address those reds, turn them into green. Now moving on here, we talked about how it's important to get the data and the insights in first, increasing spend, increasing maybe percent of bill of material. But what you do with that data next, I would say, is what really matters. And I love this quote here because I thought it really spoke to it, is that data has to be a part of the process of making the business smarter. It's not just about collecting it, it's about connecting it to action. And when I specifically look at this in the process of what a lot of our customers go through, the tension point and friction point that I often hear and we've heard is specifically between engineering and procurement. Now there's others as well, but that's the one I'd like to focus on here. What happens after engineering runs DFM, target, cost, should cost analysis on 5 parts? We come back, we've got our number for should cost. Engineering, what I tend to find has their own way of working, and when we think about it, engineering function for a lot of companies reports up through into a senior vice president, and where procurement and engineering typically meet is at the CEO level. There's a lot of people, a lot of processes, a lot of siloed tools all the way up that chain. Typically what could happen is engineering maybe is running a priori, we have access to should cost, but if procurement doesn't know that that exists, when it actually comes time to procure that part, or maybe it's manufacturing to go and make that part, we have question marks here for should cost. We didn't know that engineering was running that analysis. So how do we bridge the gap between those two to make sure procurement knows what engineering is doing there and vice versa? I mean, we could easily flip it here. In this case, procurement got a quote back. Maybe it's through their preferred ERP solution. $18, should cost us $10. aPriori has a solution called Workspace. Jimmy mentioned it earlier, where we're bridging the gap between these two teams, these two functions. And you could easily replace engineering with estimating, procurement with manufacturing, and vice versa. Workspace is a cloud-based application where now we can go in and comment directly on the data, the information, and insights that anyone in the system through an automated fashion is running and generating. So in this example, engineering on the left, again, generated that should cost using aPriori. Now procurement can leverage that information, all of that data and analyses that engineering has already done. Why reinvent the wheel? Why start from scratch? If engineering had already done it, let's leverage that data and that information. Workspace is essentially a project tool, like Fielder mentioned. He introduced the concept of a project. We've had clients use this on tariffs. Like we've got a cost reduction challenge around tariffs. Let's set up a project specifically for our machine parts to go in and collaborate with each other and know exactly how we need to improve. In this case, what I'm showing here is as a buyer, I get that information. The supplier came back with that $18 per part, but I am new to the team. I just joined a few months ago. I don't really feel confident to have the right knowledge and information to go and effectively negotiate with that supplier. I'm $8 over where we thought our should cost should be. Now I can come in and tag my colleague and say the supplier noted a tight tolerance is driving $8 more per part. Can you help me review this, right? Look into this more. As a design engineer, can respond back. Maybe that buyer had access to that $10, didn't feel confident yet to dive into the details of looking at material, labor, overhead, but all of that information is right there. They can easily access that, break down what processes are we making, what's the cycle time. But now the engineer and the buyer can start to collaboratively work together to collaborate and figure out how are we actually going to respond back to this supplier. In this case, around $10, even with that tolerance, tight tolerance, that was the feedback the supplier gave. Did the supplier come back and share how they would actually make it and what's driving that? So there's a lot of opportunities here to use Workspace in a collaborative approach, but specifically early on in engineering and procurement, it's a great way to really bridge the gap between those two groups. Circling this back to the theme here of automation, if we didn't have the data in aPriori already, we wouldn't be able to facilitate this type of collaboration. We have to have that in. Automation is a great way to make sure that it's there in the first place so procurement can leverage engineering's early work. Let's go ahead again and hear from CNH how they're actually doing this and some of the benefits.
Having people buyers and in the purchasing organization understand how to use our tools and understand how to grow the use of the tools so they can achieve our business targets. So they don't have to waste a lot of time hoping that the area that they're putting their effort into is going to yield the savings results that they need to deliver at the end of the year. They can know with confidence, here's the data, here are the areas and the parts I need to go attack and have a win-win conversation with those suppliers.
So John is one of the VPs of engineering at CNH. The work that they're doing in engineering, he's working hand in hand with procurement to make sure that they have access to that information and are leveraging that. Really great example there. So now moving on, we talked a bit about the data and insights. How can we take that data and make sure it gets inserted into process to take action? How do we actually go and measure that? Fielder talked about the design value dashboard. Scott talked about how they're measuring. Jill did as well. You have to have a way of what you're actually trying to achieve and measure. Standardizing on a design value dashboard to quantify engineering's early impact on cost is critical in NPI. At a show of hands, out of those in engineering today, how many have a great way to measure cost avoidance? Okay, we've got one. It's challenging. Love to talk to you, Carlos, about how you're doing that. Maybe we can get into that later, but it's very challenging because it's on a spreadsheet, you go through the design iteration and then you don't know. You can't quantify it, perhaps. We're quantifying that and keeping track of that through this dashboard. Instant insight into cost and risk performance, we're able to track total business analyzed. I don't know if this laser pointer works. There we go. In this case, $4.2 million analyzed. We can start to track how much cost avoidance is potential out of that. And now we can start to see, even by division or commodity group, different ways to set this up. How many users by each group? And then cost optimization by month. This is automatically pulling from the same analysis that you're running in aPriori. We're able to feed this dashboard, though, because of an automated approach. Right? If we didn't have an automated approach, it might take quite a while to generate some results from this. Automation helps really move the needle here and figure out where we need to focus. Over time, right, we can look at user detail. Who is gaining more benefit? Who is using this more efficiently than others? Maybe Emery here, as the number one runner here of components, has some lessons learned that can share with some folks down here. And then rolling that up as a leader, being able to see the project details. You have many projects that you're executing on, I'm sure, at your companies. But seeing all of that rolled up together is really important. We now have a way for you to do that on the cost avoidance side. So that's more from an engineering perspective, but it's also critical from a procurement and sourcing perspective. When I've gone and talked to, I would say, some of our flagship procurement and sourcing customers out there, everybody has their own way. It could be something similar to this, but they have some way to keep track of the percent spend that they've analyzed in aPriori relative to what I call addressable spend. In this example, this client had set up commodity groups on the left. Could be printed circuit boards, could be machine parts, sheet metal, right? You might have different ways of approaching this. But they've done the analysis to figure out of all of that, this is $255 million that aPriori could, let's say, address. To date, we've analyzed $20 million in the next column of total spend. We look at that, that's 8% of total spend that we potentially have potential there to go and analyze. My goal, I'm vice president of procurement for a global organization, is actually $2 million. Let's just say that's my goal. I now know that we're at 1 million and I'm halfway there. How do I direct my team, my commodity managers, to where to focus their energy? Well, what I'm going to do is, by having this dashboard, I'm going to come in here and say I'm at 8%. We haven't even touched injection molded parts, wire harness, castings, but even for machining, I'm 10% of the total that we could run through aPriori. I've already got 0.5, pretty good hit rate there. I'm going to go and put more parts through to figure out how I'm going to get there for this year to hit my $2 million goal. By having a dashboard like this helps you see where you need to focus. Automating insights and data helps feed this funnel here and make sure that you've got more, let's say, go-get on an actual realized savings perspective. Lastly here is the learning and application piece. We've all seen AI in the headlines, and we've to some degree, a few years ago, it came out, had a lot of hype. And I strongly believe in AI, the transformational impact it can have. And I think one of the great things that it can do is especially around the learning and application side. But it all starts with the data on here on the left. By having access to the data, running that analysis really sets up a whole bunch of new opportunities for what you can do with AI. And I put together this here to show how automating aPriori's data makes AI even better. If we think about it, with aPriori, we're still running all the analysis through our simulation engine, and we're getting insights. We're getting results on cost, on DFM, cycle time, and specifically, how are we going to go and manufacture parts? How long is it going to take? By automating all of those scenarios we're running, AI can now open up a whole new realm of experiences and opportunities for us to deliver to you. Fielder talked about the sourcing coach. What this really is as a commodity manager, we've heard that it can be quite challenging to know what to focus on. Using AI and having that data available through automation, now we'll be able to tell that commodity manager that last year, maybe there were 12 parts, dozen parts, 24 parts that we actually are very similar to this. These are the ones that we were able to effectively go and negotiate down. These are the ones we weren't successful on, but now as a new hire, maybe coming in, commodity manager, I now can really speed up my knowledge to go and figure out how am I going to turn what we looked at on that dashboard, some of those opportunities for addressable spend into realized savings. Same thing on the designer and estimation side. Think about as a designer, through AI, having access to that data, maybe again, there was a critical part last year using similar parts analysis through AI, we can now figure out that someone had already gone through this. Not the exact same part, but now we can figure that out and figure out, hey, maybe this was for an estimating use case where we designed this part, we did that work, we either won it or we didn't win it. Why did we win it? Why did we not win it? And now I know specifically that, hey, we have the capability to go and do this. Should I spend my time on this? Or what do I need to go and fix to go and address this? AI now has a whole bunch of new opportunities here. We strongly believe that you have to have the right data set and quality data set to really feed your AI system. So to recap here, automation as the outcome enabler. It all starts with having quality data. That upstream ability to analyze data, have access to the right insights, feeds into downstream automation on the process side, how to measure it, and then how to apply it with learning, especially using AI. We heard some examples from Rivian of improving product profitability and CNH launching on time and under cost target. Those are really the main outcomes that were really what we hear from many of you and our customers, what they're trying to drive. Let's go ahead and hear from CNH one more time, the value that aPriori is delivering for them and other benefits.
Our farmers are under continuous pressure for their input costs, and that's where aPriori comes in, helping make sure that the parts that we buy that goes into our machines are being delivered efficiently, that they're designed efficiently right from the start, and that we can collaborate with our suppliers to get to the right cost levels, and we have a win-win with our suppliers. On our next generation combine program, we had done a lot of work to meet all of our functional targets, to meet all of our stretched weight targets as well. And later in the program, as we ran the financials and ran cost data updates, we found that we kept getting further and further from our cost target. And so by using the aPriori data, we were able to go after those priority activities. We actually didn't do that much redesign of any of the parts. We just said, using the data, we want to go back and collaborate with our suppliers. We go and get the right cost. Haven't explored the efficiencies that you can gain by using aPriori. You need to go seek it out and go use it and go understand what it can do for you and remove barriers to execution in your daily work.
Pretty amazing there what CNH has been able to achieve through automation. Whether you're in estimating, you're in design, engineering, manufacturing, or procurement, cost engineering, take a look at automation.